Are you a chiropractor with a struggling practice, having a hard time finding and keeping patients? Is your staff falling short of expectations? I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and DC Trainings has the answers that you need. So tune in now and find out how. Hello and welcome to DC Trainings. I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer. I want to welcome everyone to our call / webinar / podcast today, and we are moving right along through module 1. So it's really great to be with you today and to share what is our topic today, which is job duties. And as we dive into this, these responsibilities can really clarify exactly what it is that your team is responsible for. And the more that everybody's clear on their responsibilities and what their duties are, then the smoother your practice is going to run. So this is a really great topic to sort of wrap up the second part of our module. And let's dive right in. And as I always like to point out, during this time, if you have any questions, just raise your hand, type in a question. Let me know what questions you have, because I want to make sure when you leave this webinar today that you have no unanswered questions. And I've had some great questions through this module from many of our members with specifics about hiring a CA, hiring a doctor. I'm having a challenge with this CA, how do I hold them accountable for certain things? I mean, I've had just lots of great questions. And so I invite your questions and let me know how I can help you to maintain a successful practice. I'm juggling between two screens, so I'm going to jump over here and share my screen with you. And this way, as you can see, we are in week 7 of module 1. Now, a week from this Saturday, next Saturday, we will have our next seminar, which is the module 2 new patient seminar. And in that seminar, I'll show you here, we're going to be going through the details of the new patient sequence. So in other words, what is it that you need to incorporate into your practice so that for every new patient that comes into your office, they can be really educated about chiropractic, about the possibilities that their health can go to, or the level that their health can go to while under chiropractic care. And the better that first visit education comes into place, the better retention you'll have with your new patients. Now, I have to share this story with you because I'm in practice just like you full time, but and I had a new patient that just came in yesterday, and he actually was a returning new patient from 2 years ago. And he came, he didn't come back for the report of findings. Like, we only saw him once. I never saw him again. And he actually had moved away. And when I saw him yesterday as a reactivating new patient, he was sharing with me that he'd always remembered what he learned on that first visit. And he always looked forward to getting chiropractic care, except he was so busy and he moved away. And I guess wherever he went, it just wasn't feasible for him to have chiropractic care. But he always knew that if and when he came back to my town or our town, that he would come in and resume his chiropractic care based on the education from that very first visit. And all it took was one visit. Now, BJ Palmer had a great saying, and that is, you never know how far reaching something you may say, think, or do today will affect the lives of millions. Now, that was a while ago. So now we say billions of people tomorrow. And that's the approach that we want to take when we see each new patient that comes into our office. So I'll be showing that to you on the 23rd of March, which is a week from this Saturday. It's coming up right around the corner. It will be a virtual seminar, so we won't be doing it live in person, but we will make that available to you through Zoom, and you can just log right in and join the seminar, and I look forward to seeing you there. So let's dive into week 7 job duties and talk about the benefits here, because as it says on your screen, a practice with a fully trained team operates as a successful, viable company with long-term stability. Now, I am reading a book right now that I just want to share with you because it's called Top Grading. There's actually a couple books, but that one is a really great book, and it's about really the viability of your company, your practice. And when you train people the right people and you place them into the right positions in your office, they will grow your company. They'll grow your practice. You won't have to be pushing them and pushing them and pushing, or even worse yet, pulling, trying to get them to operate successfully. No, they're going to be self-driven, and they're going to grow your practice from that standpoint. So I'll be getting into more detail on that in a minute, because we're going to talk about the job duties, but I just wanted to paint that picture, because what a great feeling it is to be in a practice where your team is all pulling together. They're all really striving to maintain a successful practice alongside of the doctor. And that teamwork and that camaraderie is what builds a successful company. So we want to make sure that your team is fully trained so that they're all pulling in the right direction and they're moving your practice forward. There's another part of this as we're building into this topic, and that's an annual talent review. And the annual talent review is important because it lets you make changes and update talents. I'll read it first, and then I'll explain what I mean by that. The first step is to review all job duties and assigned measurable focuses. Then determine their best position for practice growth. So I'll just give you an example. I have a really great CA, and she's been in my office. We've worked together now for 16 years. And when she started, she ran the front desk. That was where we started. That was her main focus. As time evolved, I saw that her talents were really more in a one-on-one environment. Not that she can't run the front desk. She did a great job, but the one-on-one environment is really where she shines. And so in terms of finding her talents and really making sure that she's placed in the position to do her best work for the most hours of the day, we discovered that it's better for her if she's doing the new patient consultations and that she's doing the report of findings and the care plan renewals and the financial arrangements. That's where her talents really shine. And so by setting it up in that way, and I'm just going to bump over here real quick, by setting it up in that way to where I know that's not the only thing that she does, but it's the majority of what she does, she's able to really shine. So I really encourage you each year, review your CA job duties or well, I guess basically that sums it up. The job duties for each CA, and then talk about it and determine if that's still the best fit for them, because it could change with time, right? And you want to have them in the best position, as it says on the screen, for practice growth. You want to make sure you have a very successful long-term practice to serve as many patients as you feel like you want to serve and bring the health of our world to the highest level possible using chiropractic care. So let's keep going. And then we're going to dive into some specifics now. That was kind of a general, right? Each year, do a talent assessment. Now we're going to get into job duties. And the first one is called the reception. And we have actually in DC trainings, we have two of them. There's a reception A and a reception B. And we call that the captain's chair. Now, to the degree to which you can clarify the specific purpose, I was going to say core value, but we talked about that in our goal setting seminar. But the purpose for each CA in your office, and narrow it down to just one thing. And that one thing has to be measurable. That's important. Each person on your team should have the one thing they're responsible for, and it has to be measurable. They may have lots of other responsibilities and duties and things that they do, but it has to boil down, or at least part of that has to be one thing that's measurable. So this particular person's responsibility is to lead each patient to care plan completion. Okay, so when a new patient comes into the office from your marketing, from your advertising department, then they come into the office as a new patient, and then they have a report of findings, and that report of findings lays out what the doctor's recommending for that patient. From that point, as soon as they say, yes, I'm 100% committed to following through with the doctor's recommendations. Now follow this. They say, yes, I'm committed. They make their first payment and they get adjusted. Those three things constitute a patient starting their care plan. From that point, it falls right over to the reception. And the reception job at that point is to lead that patient from that point all the way through the end of their care plan. And to make sure that they've completed it. Now, we've given you lots of job duties to follow that sequence to make sure that every new patient that starts care, or at least the vast majority, complete that care plan. If they miss an appointment, it gets rescheduled. If they miss a payment, it gets addressed. So that way they stay on course with their care, they get the best results, they refer others, and they stay the longest. Okay, so we've provided that for you. That's reception A. Now, for those of you who have busier practices, having one CA at the front desk sometimes is not enough to keep up with the patient flow or the patient volume. And so we've actually divided that reception A into a reception A and a reception B. There's actually two reception positions for that. So there's mainly like a check-in CA, and then there's also a check-out CA. And the check-out CA typically is not 100% busy with that. But what they are doing is they're actually multitasking, right? So there's actually a third job duties, and that's the new patients. So what I typically recommend for those of you who have two CAs or more is to have one CA that's doing the check-in, and the second CA is doing the backup to the front desk, and they're sort of jumping back and forth between the front desk and the new patients and the progress exams and the care plan renewals, and doing that part as a backup to that primary CA. It can be a little challenging to have all of that fall on the shoulders of one CA, and I'll give you an example. Let's say that there's a CA at the front who's going to help with the new patient signing ceremony, right? They go into a room with the new patient, they're signing the forms, and then from there, while they're doing the signing ceremony, the phone's ringing and some patients walk in the front door. Well, who's greeting those patients that walked in the front door? Who's answering the phone while this CA is in with a new patient, right? So it's good to have at least two CAs that can actually juggle those duties. And I know for some of you doctors, you are doing all of it, right? You do the whole process with your new patient. But I'll just tell you that in terms of value, when you can start to spread these responsibilities out, there's a lot more perceived value by the new patients that come in when they see that this is more of a healthcare center than just a one doctor shop where the doctor's running everything. So you'll get more value, you'll get better retention, and you'll get better education by spreading the responsibilities out and having everybody share that workload. So here's the primary purpose for the new patient CA is to manage the marketing calendar and provide initial chiropractic education for all new patients. Very simple. Now, how is that measured? You might think, well, it's measured in the number of new patients. That's not correct. That's incorrect. It's not measured in the number of new patients. It's measured in the number of new patients that return for their report of findings. That's how it's measured. See how I did that? So there's always a responsibility that each job duties boils down to, and how is it measurable, right? So the marketing department or your advertising CA, they're responsible for the number of new patients. They'll just drive new patients in the front door. They just bring them in. That's their responsibility. Let's get the numbers in and we'll take it from there. From there, the new patient CA sees the new patient and does the education and obtains the information that we need to be able to provide the best chiropractic care. And how is that measured? That's measured in the number of those new patients who return for their report of findings. From there, it goes into the report of findings sequence. And the report of findings CAs will work with, or doctors, doctors, if you're doing this on your own, that's great. But you need to know which sequence you're on and be able to measure your success rates in each step of this sequence. So you know where the subluxations are in your practice, right? So then we measure the conversion rates. So how many patients that showed up for the report of findings convert into active care plans? Once they're in their active care plans, then it comes back full circle here to reception, which is what we've been looking at. And at that point, what are we measuring? We're measuring retention. And the way we measure retention is to see how long each of those new patients or those report of findings that started care, how long do they stay compared to what the recommendations are by the doctor? So if we had a new patient who had a report of findings and the doctor recommended I don't know, 70 visits over a whole year, right? That's a big number, but it's a whole year. So 70 visits. Well, how far did each one of those new patients get in the 70 visits before they either dropped out of care or, well, actually, that's it, dropped out of care, because if they didn't drop out of care, they're going to complete the 70 visits. So you see how I look at this from, it's almost like baking cookies. If you have a really good recipe for baking cookies, the closer you follow that recipe, the better your cookies are going to come out, right? If the closer your patients follow your recommendations, doctors, with the help of your team, the better your results are. The better your results are, the longer your patients stay, the more they refer others, the more they're willing to pay you for their care, right? So it all ties in together, and that's why we keep these numbers so close and really watch how they're transpiring. So let's jump back over here and continue on. Let's see, there we go. Okay, so that was the new patient CA then, and I did a kind of a little sidebar or tangent there, but we have these job duties for you. So you can use these job duties to customize exactly which items are most important for you in your practice. If there's some of this stuff that's not relative or doesn't relate to your practice or you don't use, that's fine. For example, if you have a paper file system and you're not using digital, then obviously you're not going to scan. I'm going to highlight this, but you're not going to scan the new patient and report of findings forms into the patient files because you're storing those in paper files. That's okay. Or loading x-rays into patient files. If you're not doing digital x-ray or not doing x-ray at all, obviously then that's not going to apply to you. But I've kept it pretty comprehensive so you can use these job duties to train your team and pick and choose what it is that relates to your practice, and then use those items to create your own job duties list and make sure that your team knows what they are. Okay, so that's job duties for new patients. Now there's your primary CA. And once again, I see Dr. Knitsch on our call. Your primary CA may be the same CA that's running your front desk, and it might also be the CA that's seeing your new patients, right? If you have just one CA or two CAs, there's going to be some crossover. But there needs to be a CA in there, or a person, an individual who's responsible for measuring specific parts of your practice. And even if it's just a one doctor practice, which is fine. I know some of you are just starting out in practice. I see Dr. Glenn, you're on the call and you're starting your practice. So in that case, you're going to be responsible for all of these areas. It doesn't mean that it's a voluminous amount of work, because when you're starting your practice, you don't have as many patient files and you don't have as many patients that you're seeing. But you can start to put the pieces in place on these sequences so that you're following the steps. And then as you grow, you maintain that efficiency and you add more help to your team so that you can start to delegate and nothing slips through the cracks, right? That's how big companies grow. They start small with good systems, and then they add more people to run those same systems. Very important. So the primary CA's primary purpose, so one CA is to manage staff focuses and success rates for the entire practice. So I'll give you an example. An example would be like my primary CA, her name's Bertha, and we have 4 CAs, right? So there's actually 5 success rates that we measure in DC training. So with those 4 CAs, let me just move this out of the way here. She's responsible for making sure that each one of those CAs' success rates is at or above the goals that have been established for the practice. So if our new patient goal is up, which it currently is, she's giving a thumbs up to the CA that's responsible for that goal, and great job. If say the patient visit goal is down, then her responsibility is to meet with the CA that's responsible for patient visits and develop a plan or an approach or a series of action steps that are going to change that success rate and get it up to where the goal is that we need, right? So that's the primary purpose the purpose of the primary CA is to manage staff focuses and success rates for the entire practice. And once again, if you have a smaller team, that's okay. You want to have point people that you go to. You might have one CA in your office, and that CA gets to look at the success rates and make sure they're all good when compared to the goals. Now, doctors, if you own your practice, you're going to be doing the same thing as well. But it's nice to spread that work out and be able to have conversations with individuals who are aware of what the goals are and how you're doing towards reaching those goals. Those are great conversations to have, and just put it all on the table and have everybody involved in that. Okay, so that's the primary CA. Now, we've given you job duties here, which I'm going to come back to this on the website, but that's all there. But I want to just show you, because a nice focus for your primary CA, aside from maintaining success rates for the whole team or all 5 areas, is to really carefully watch the report of findings and care plan renewal success rates. Those two, because those two basically fill the funnel for all the rest, right? If you have report of findings conversion rates that are high and care plan renewals that are high, that means you're having plenty of new patients, you're having plenty of patients complete their care plans, and with both of those success rates high, you're going to see high revenue, income, and collections success rates as well. So it kind of ties in with everything else, and that's why those two are a great fit to assign for your primary CA. Oh, and actually, I apologize. I was not sharing my screen as I'm telling you about that. So let me jump back over. There we go. Okay, so I was just showing you here, the focus of the primary CA is the report of findings and care plan renewals, as well as use these documents up here to maintain desired practice levels. Okay, new patients, patient visits, conversion rates, and revenue. That's all there for you. Okay, so let's continue on. And again, once again, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. I'm happy to help you. I want to give you an example here of team accountability. And I will say, where there's no accountability, there will be a loss of production, and a loss of production equals lower collections, period. So we need to make sure there's accountability, if for no other reason than to make sure that there's enough revenue coming in to pay your bills. Very important. So, I mean, if you talk about to any successful big company in the world or in the United States or even in California, they all have very clear tracking around revenue. They just do, because it takes money to run a successful company. So not that we're just all about the money, because with chiropractic, we actually have a much higher purpose. And that's what's so exciting about chiropractic, is we can be passionate about our core priorities, about why we do what we do. It's ethical, it's beautiful, it produces miracles, people love it. That we can stay focused on. But behind that, we have to run a business. And that's why I get into these numbers a little more in depth. Okay, so team accountability here, we have new patients who that success rate is going to be accountable to a CA. We have conversion rates, which I just showed you. That's accountable to your primary CA. You have patient visits, which is accountable to a CA. We have patient visit average, which is accountable to a doctor. Now, if you have an associate doctor, this is a great time to talk about this, but this is a great position to assign your associate doctor, meaning, and I'll just lay this out because we have lots of practices that do this continuously. From that standpoint, if you have a CA who's in charge of marketing that drives in the new patients, you have CAs that do the report of findings and financial arrangements, which set those patients up on care plans. You have an associate doctor who does the adjustments of those patients, along with the practice owner. And those adjustments then are going to determine how long those patients stay, because if they're happy with their results, they'll stay longer. So the patient visit average really falls on the part of the doctors, because it's our care that will encourage the patients and reward the patients for following through with their entire care plan. And then lastly, we have revenue, which as the business owner, that's the primary doctor of chiropractic. So that does fall on the shoulders of the PDC, and ultimately we need to be measuring that. So that's just an example of team accountability as it relates to the practice overall. Now, in going through those numbers, remember, this could be a one doctor, one CA office. That's fine. Or it could be a one doctor office. And on the DC Training's goals tracking system, we give you the option to decide if you as the doctor want to be responsible for all the focuses, or if you want to have this delegated out across your team. So you'll have that option either way on the DC Training's goals tracking system app. Okay. So continuing on, let's talk about vacations, right? That's part of job duties. Here's your responsibilities. Here's how much time you get off for vacation. Here's how much time you have to do all these things. So paid vacation, primary doctor, you get to determine that that's on you. You can decide to actually, I have one doctor with DC trainings that the doctor actually doesn't even work in the practice at all. She delegates everything. She has doctors adjusting. She has a PDC. She has a PCA, all of it. And she just runs the business and watches the success rates. That's it. Now, you might have a doctor that's doing, that's your associate doctor. Well, in that case, make sure that you have, as part of that relationship, a certain amount of time where, as an associate doctor, they're going to cover for you the PDC while you're on vacation. And that can be a great win-win relationship. I can go into more details on that. If you have questions, just let me know. But you should spell that out in the beginning as part of the job duties, because the job duties of your associate need to be spelled out clearly so that nothing falls over onto the plate of the PDC that the PDC wasn't expecting to have to be responsible for. Okay. That would be an associate. Then a DC employee, then there's just a set time for vacations. I'll continue on. PCA and CA, one of the things I do in my office is after 5 years of employment, they get 3 weeks off of paid vacation per year. It's just a nice incentive for them. They get a little extra time off, which we all enjoy. And it really adds to longevity for them to stay with your practice for the long term. Okay. Let's talk about, when it comes to job duties, of course, there's the elephant in the room, which says, what happens if I have a CA who's not performing well? Well, the first thing is, don't focus on the negatives. One of my core values is under the category of social goals. One of my goals is to find a way to compliment the people I spend time with on a daily basis. So I spend time with my CAs every day, and I'm always looking for ways to compliment them. Just even little things like your desk looks great today. This is nice. Or did you get a haircut? It looks great. Or I love the way you talked to that patient the other day. That was great. It really helped them to feel comfortable. And I appreciate that. And I'm sure they did too. So just find ways to compliment your team and don't focus on the negatives. Make the negatives the exception to your normal conversations, not the majority of your conversations. Now, when it comes to corrective coaching, that's a different topic. And I want to pull up my, I have actually some, I want to share these steps with you, because these steps are important. When it comes to corrective coaching, there's specific steps you need to follow that can lead up to termination of one's employment. Now, hopefully it doesn't ever lead that far, but if it does go that far and you have to let somebody go, you want to make sure that your records are clearly kept so that you don't end up running into problems. So I'm going to just read this off to you, and I've got this over here, that these are the steps. You should write this down. The first step when somebody is not doing well and needs some corrective coaching is that they need to be told what was wrong. Okay, so you just tell them, don't do that. Got it. Step 2 is what elevates that and goes to an actual verbal warning. I told you that that's not okay. Now I'm telling you again, and you want to document this. You want to write this down. It doesn't have to be signed by the CA, but you do want to write this down, that you told them that it wasn't okay. Then you told them again in a more formal setting, and you wrote it down. The third is what's called a written warning. Now, this one means you're writing it down and you're saying, this is not okay. I told you it wasn't okay. I trained you on the alternative way to do this. And actually, here, let me jump over to the screen here. And you went ahead and you did it anyways. Hold on, sorry. I have to jump back. And you did it anyways. So that's called the, sorry, that's number 3, right? That was 3 for written warning. Now that one, it doesn't have to be signed by the CA, but it, or I'm sorry, that one it does. I got myself off track. Sorry, there's you tell them what's wrong. That's number 1. You tell them what was wrong again, and this time you write it down. They don't have to sign it. 3 is a formal written warning. I told you once this was not okay. I told you again it was not okay, and I gave you an alternative. in terms of what was okay. And then third, I'm giving you a written warning. This is not okay. And you're going to sign it this time. Okay. Then the fourth one is that the CA must acknowledge that they understand and that they understand the alternative, which is the right way, or the thing that is okay versus not okay, right? So there has to be that final thing. Look, you signed something and I told you it wasn't okay. And now you understand that, okay? They have to know that. That's step 4. And step 5, if it happens again, we're done. That's the end of it. Now, I'm going through that carefully because what happens in many offices, unfortunately, is doctors get a little nervous about the confrontation. And I understand it. You might have a CA that's running your front desk and you don't want to lose this person, right? They know what to do. They're guiding patient flow. If they were to leave, that means you have to do it yourself and you have to rehire somebody else. And so there's this big backpedal that happens that causes us to want to avoid the confrontational level that's required to handle this problem. So I just want to encourage you, when it comes to corrective coaching, don't procrastinate. Get on it quickly, because the faster you get on it, the faster it will change for the better. Now, it may change where you have to replace that person with somebody else, or it may change to where that person stops doing the thing that was wrong and gets on track with the things that are right, and you end up with a much better relationship anyways. So the faster you address this and the less you procrastinate will lead to a much more successful practice. So let's keep going though. And that's the corrective coaching. So I've given you those 4 steps now. That's the steps you want to follow. Now, continuing on, if they do leave, we want to do an exit interview. And I'll show you these documents in just a minute on our website. So there we go. So that kind of wraps up that section. We're going to get into performance evaluation next week, which is exciting because that's when we get into rewarding your employees for being great, for being awesome, and really promoting this long-standing relationship that just builds a great team, a viable company, and of course, a successful practice that's serving lots of patients and collecting lots of income, and everybody's happy. Okay, so that's what we're aiming for. And that's where we want to go with it. Okay, so from there, let me just jump over to our website and show you these materials. There we go. All right. So on the website, by the way, and once again, you may have noticed this, but when you click on the website, there's a message that I put up here. And this question here: could you retain new patients longer through a VIP education on the first visit? Well, of course, the answer is yes. So don't miss our upcoming virtual seminar, the New Patient Seminar, on March 18th, 2023. So that's a week from this Saturday, 10 o'clock a.m. I'm just going to show you, but it says right here, to join, go here. If you go to training and then you click on seminars, you'll click this button right here, and it'll bring you right into the seminar. Well, it says webinar registration, but it's actually the seminar registration, but it'll take you right in there when you click on that button. Okay. And it'll be from 10 until 2. So it's a 4-hour window. We're going to jam through all the information that you need to provide a great education for all of your new patients. Now, let's go back to the homepage, because here, and actually, wait, one more thing I need to do. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So on here, these are the materials down here that I'm referring to. And this week, there is quite a few materials, right? There's quite a bit. So I'm going to go right through them just to give you sort of an overview. We have the exit interview sample. So this is actually important if you do have to let someone go, or even if somebody just quits and leaves your team and you're on great terms, please do the exit interview. You will learn things in that interview that somebody who currently works with you may not tell you. So it's a great way to really look in the mirror and see, how did I do, excuse me, as an employer? So that's the first one. And all of these have samples on the website, but we also have the originals. So you can go in there and pull the originals as well. We have the employment termination sample. So this is a notice of termination of employment. Very important to have on file in case you have a wrongful termination, or if an employee comes back later and tries to file for unemployment. Not that they shouldn't receive unemployment, they probably should, but does it need to come out of your account Probably not if it was for a good reason. So make sure that you have that employment termination sample and have it signed by your employee if possible. There's a written, we're kind of going back through these, so they would actually be escalating in the other direction, but we're going back through them this way. So the next one is the written warning sample. So that's there. That's also to be signed by your employee. This is all the human resources and HR department stuff. Now we get into some of the fun stuff. There's the request for time off sample. So if an employee wants some time off, no problem. This is straight from the employment agreement. I've taken that out and put it onto this form for you so that your CAs can use this to request any time away. And it's got lots of good details in it about getting their shifts covered, making sure that their work doesn't fall behind when they're gone. So it's usually, excuse me, it's a good idea to use this form because it protects you. And more importantly, it helps your team to know what needs to be done when they're going to take time off and leave for vacation. Excuse me. Okay. Moving right along, I'm going to go back through the job duties. Here they are. I know I showed you these on the PowerPoint, but just so you know that they're here, here's the job duties for new patients. That's all listed out for you. Here is the job duties for reception B. So that's sort of the backup to reception A. And then there's reception A. That's also here. And then last but not least, the job duties for primary CA. Now you can take these again and boil them down to just what you as a single doctor needs to do in your practice to run a successful practice. You could boil it down to just you, doctor, and one CA and spread that out between the two of you. Or you could have 3 doctors and 10 CAs. Either way, these are the specific items that need to be considered and completed in terms of running a successful practice of any size. Now, there's some stuff that may not apply. That's okay. But you want to look at all of this and incorporate it into your office in terms of managing and having a successful practice. Okay, so that's all of our materials there. Next week, as I said, we'll be getting into our performance evaluation, and then Saturday after that is our next seminar. So really exciting. I'm looking forward to that. And as always, in the meantime, keep carrying that chiropractic torch, taking great care of your patients, and let us know how we can help you here at DC Trainings. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon.
If you would like to become a member of DC Trainings, be sure to head on over to dctrainings.com to get started today.